Good day, everybody. This is Chris of the Ancient Scholar. Hope this video finds you all doing well. In this quick video, I'm going to talk a little bit about my long-term impressions of the Google Pixel 7. With the advent of the Pixel 7a that was just released earlier this week, reviews are coming in. I thought what I would do is I would revisit the Pixel 7, and I've actually received a couple of questions. People have sent me some questions asking me to redux the Pixel 7 and talk about my general thoughts in a more long-term, on a more long-term basis. So thought I would do that in this particular video. So my overall thoughts are more or less unchanged from the original videos that I completed talking about the Pixel 7, and that is to say I think it is a great phone. I continue to use it every day. It is my daily driver for work. It's my primary work phone, and so this is a phone that I use primarily when I'm in the hospital, when I'm communicating with students. I have different cohorts in their phone numbers in this particular phone, and it has its own unique phone number, and I only use that in the clinical environment so I can communicate with students. And then when clinical shifts are done with and I have no need to communicate with the students, then I no longer have to use this phone, and I use my primary phone, which is the iPhone 14 Pro, as my day-to-day, my daily driver outside of work. So this phone does get quite a bit of use. So my overall impressions remain good, and in fact, I would say they have actually improved. This phone has gotten better over time, which I know is not necessarily the case with previous iterations of the Google Pixel. I actually had a Pixel, I believe a Pixel 2, and then I had the Pixel 3 XL with the two large front-facing lenses, which was a very unique look. And I would have to say that actually I loved the front-facing camera on that particular phone, because that second lens had a real wide angle and I was able to get really good selfies when I was out hiking with my wife. But the earlier iterations of the Pixel certainly had their flaws in terms of overall build quality. The Pixel 2 that I had ended up getting screen burn-in pretty badly, but Google accepted it and traded it in, and then that allowed me to get the Pixel 3 XL. And the 3 XL was just plagued by user interface problems. It got really laggy, it'd slow down, things would crash, and it just wasn't very stable after the first few months of use. So it was great from a photography perspective, but it had a lot of UI issues. It was pretty unstable. It just wasn't a great daily driver of a phone. So I really did have low expectations going into the Pixel 7, but this phone is a completely different device. This is a highly refined, highly stable device, and probably coming from an iPhone, I would say an optimal Android experience, because it is stripped down, it is simplified, it is easy to use, but it is very stable and fluid. So in some ways, I would say that this is the iPhone of all the Android phones out there, in the sense that it's refined, it's simple, it's easy to use, and it provides a consistently good experience in the package. So let's just talk about the Pixel 7. I actually have this set up for when the phone's near me. It's really easy to open up, but it does have the finger unlock and the face unlock, which is pretty good. The face unlock is really nice. The fingerprint sensor is lacking, and I think some of that is just due to the fact that I have a screen protector on. I've had some people comment on my prior videos talking about how the certain screen protectors make the fingerprint sensor less effective in some cases, and so that seems to be the case with me. But that's a trade-off I'm more than happy to take, to have a screen protector on. So all my phones, I have cases and screen protectors, just because, you know, I'm a pretty active person, and these devices go all over the place. So you can see here, so it's got the nice always on display. It's very minimalistic. It gives you your time. You've got notifications and some weather, and that's about it. Battery life. This is a very simple strip down, always on display. Not a whole lot of, you don't really have the ability to customize that too much, but when you get into the phone, it's very quick. And one of the things about Android in general is a lot more customizable. So you can see I'm using a, I believe this is called the Live Forest wallpaper. This is really neat. This is a wallpaper that you can use that is fairly simple, but it's very dynamic. And what you have is you have these trees, these mountains and hills, and then clouds in the background. And you can make these any color you want. So right now I have kind of these reddish trees and kind of a brownish hill. So this is kind of autumn. And then I've got these black mountains. And the really neat thing about this is it responds to local weather conditions. So you can actually, if you have an API for whatever weather app you want to use, you can put that in. And right now it's cloudy outside. It's not currently raining, but it was earlier. And so when it rains, it'll actually start raining here on the phone. Or when it gets windy, the trees will start whipping back and forth to show you that it's windy out or it's rainy out. It's just a really neat app that you can run that provides this really neat kind of an interactive and useful wallpaper. And you can see it's very fluid, right? Very fluid, very responsive, right? Let's do the all-star action button here, right? Look at that. That's actually one of the things I really like about this phone. I know a lot of people do not like the power button placed above the volume buttons, and that does have some issues. But what I really like is if I want to catch a picture real quickly, I just pull my phone out, my finger naturally indexes on that button, I hit it twice, and boom, I'm into my camera, and I can get that photo. And the camera, of course, is an incredibly good camera. Even on the 7, this rivals or even bests the kinds of photography I can get on the iPhone 14 Pro. From a zoom perspective, the zoom is probably a little better on the iPhone Pro because it has 2 and 3 times optical zoom versus the digital zoom on this phone. But when it comes to just daily driving, point and shoot camera, the Pixel 7 and presumably the 7a is going to be a really hard to beat package. Just from basic point and shoot, I would say that the night photography is much better on the Pixel when compared to the iPhone 14 Pro. Although the iPhone 14 Pro does have macro photography, or in principle it can do macro photography. I find though that it's automatic, and so it automatically chooses when it puts itself into the macro mode. And I find that it doesn't work as well as I would like, and I don't do a whole lot of macro photography, but sometimes there's a butterfly exhibit that I go to over in Tucson during the winter at the botanical gardens, and I like to get close to the butterflies and take pictures. And I thought that the 14 Pro would be a great phone, and I found that it didn't work as well as I wanted it to in that environment. But yeah. As far as video goes, Pixels have vastly improved their video capabilities. I'd say they're roughly on par with all the other flagships. But in general, the iPhone does do better photography in general. But the Pixel has really caught up. Google has done a lot of work in their video. It's not quite up to what you'd see on an iPhone 14 or 14 Pro, but it's pretty close. And as far as the photography goes, again, it is roughly comparable, if not better, depending on the situation. As far as the day-to-day operation of the phone, it's very quick, it's poppy. I have no complaints. I do know that the Tensor G2 processor, as far as raw processing power, is certainly well behind something like the Snapdragon, the 8 Gen 1 that you see in the other contemporary Android phones, like the Samsung phones, or the A16 chip that you see in the contemporary iPhones, which is really just kind of a rebranded chip from last year. But Google Tensor is optimized for a lot of the computational photography applications in the Pixel, and a lot of the artificial intelligence stuff. And so while it may not have the raw horsepower of some of these other processors, and so if you're a big gamer, I don't know that this would be a great gaming phone. But I don't know. I don't do a whole lot of gaming on my, I don't do a whole lot of gaming in general, let alone doing gaming on a phone. So I can't really comment on that so much. But I have no issues running applications. I do have a variety of medical applications that I run. So one of them is the InfraMed guide, the critical care and ACLS guide. And I have absolutely no problems pulling that up, going into it. Everything is really snappy. It gets me what I need. I don't have any problems at all. I use Epocrates quite a bit as well for looking up medications, drug information. Epocrates works just fine. It's just as poppy as it is on my iPhone. Let's see. I use a PDF scanner. PDF scanner works just fine on this as well. I use an app called PM Cardio, which is an app that you can use to scan 12 lead ECGs, and it has the Queen of Hearts algorithm, and it's very good, actually better than I am in many cases when it comes to identifying ischemia, injury, infarction, OMI, NOMI, and that kind of stuff. Yeah, so as far as the applications that I use on a day-to-day basis, this works just fine. And it's well optimized for the kind of computational stuff that they do in here. The voice dictation is second to none in the Google phones. So if you want to make a voice memo, or you are using this as an interpretation device for different languages, this is far better than pretty much any other commonly available device, certainly than the iPhone. Voice dictation on the iPhone is absolute garbage compared to the Pixel. It really is. Come on, you all know that, right? You try to note, or you try to use voice to send a text message, and it's a disaster. I'm not the most intelligent person in the world. I'm not the most articulate person in the world, but I can speak reasonably well, and the iPhone has a very difficult time detecting my speech and getting the proper words, whereas the Pixel is far better than that, than the iPhone. But the iPhone does have raw horsepower, and you can run all the games, Genshin Impact and all those things, probably better, more reliably on something like the iPhone. But I'm not at a substantial loss, I don't think, when using the Pixel. The Pixel, obviously, the Android 13 has the customization that you aren't able to see on something like an iPhone, where there is some additional customization that's been added in more contemporary iterations of iOS, but it's nothing on the level of what you can do, right? Putting on dynamic wallpapers that move around and give you weather effects and all that. And that's a very simple application. You can do that much easier. Even just bare bones stock Android, if I want to change my wallpaper and my style, there is an entire in-depth editor that allows you to get really fine-grained, and you have different icons and different colors of the fonts and texts that dynamically change depending on the backgrounds you're using. So it's highly customizable, and then you can load on a launcher, something like Nova Launcher, and you can get even more fine-grained customization out of the appearance of your device. And then other devices even take that further, One UI and some of the skins that you see on top of Android in the Huawei, the Xiaomi phones, the Samsung Galaxies. You just run completely amok with the customization. Again, Apple, their philosophy is much more controlled, where they have control of that, and they give you a very curated experience where you have a much more adaptable experience on most Android devices. So yeah, let's talk about the battery life. The battery life, I would say, is you can get through all day. You can get through a day on this phone if you're not, your raw screen on time is probably going to be in the neighborhood of 5 to 7 hours of just raw screen on time, watching YouTube and using Twitter or whatever. And I would say that the raw screen on time is better for the iPhone 14, the 14 Pro. Actually, I would say, what is it, the iPhone 14 Max or whatever, the big one with the big 60 hertz screen and the dual camera setup. It has a big battery, probably has the best battery life versus the 14 Pro, which has the high refresh rate screen, and I don't think it lasts quite as long as the Max. So yeah, as far as just raw battery life, probably something like an iPhone or even a large Samsung, a Note or comparable device, probably going to give you better battery life. The Pixel does tend to adapt, so after about a week or two, so the first couple of weeks it's a little rough, but it kind of adapts to your work and when you're charging it, and the battery life does get better and kind of stabilizes. And I'm getting consistent all day. I can use this thing all day. You can see it's about 8 o'clock at night here, and I'm about 80% on the battery. And again, I that's mainly because I haven't had a whole lot of on-screen time, right? I'm mainly using this to get a hold of my students, send messages out, scan documents as I need, look up medications, look up treatment pathways, things like that. So I'm not on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all that stuff all day long on this phone. So it easily gets me through all day and then some. As far as its footprint goes, it's a little larger than the iPhone 14 Pro, but it is thinner. It's roughly the same weight. But yeah, it has roughly the same footprint as an iPhone 14 or 14 Pro. So yeah, nothing crazy there. It has wireless charging. It has reverse wireless charging, wired charging as well. It does not have multi-SIM support, so you get one SIM card, but I just run Google Fi, and it does just fine for me, at least here domestically. Yeah, what else can I say about this phone that I haven't already said? It's a wonderful phone. It's a lovely phone. I'm actually really excited about what Google is going to do next. I know that the Google Fold was announced and it came out, but it's $1,800 for something. I don't know. It just seems a bit gimmicky to me. Certainly, if you're an early adopter, you like to go out there and floss your tech, you're going to have to get the Fold. But just, I mean, you can get a Pixel 7 for next to nothing. I had an old iPhone, and they gave me I think almost $600, $500 trade-in, and I basically ended up paying, I don't know, $20 for this phone after the trade-in. What a deal. What a steal of a deal for something like this. I would say If you're considering the 7A, I think the 7A would be a great option. It's, you know, it's within $100 of this, and with discounts, my impression is that the Pixel 7 is probably a better phone. It's got a little better build quality. Although, you know, the 7A has that plastic back, and, you know, as far as reliability, not cracking when you drop it, that may be something to think about. But I think the 7 has a little better camera. The build quality is a little better. It uses Gorilla Glass Victus. You've got higher speed wireless charging and wired charging. So I think there are some benefits, and with discounts and things like that, you could probably get a Pixel 7 for pretty cheap. And I think it's probably the overall better deal between the 7A and the 7 Pro. But if you get a great deal on a 7A or a really good trade-in on an old mid-range phone, I think the 7A would be a great mid-range phone. Again, assuming that you can get a good, you know, trade-in or a good deal, but maybe at its original price, it's so close to the 7. I just think I would kind of prefer the 7. This does have a high refresh rate, 90 hertz screen. I think the 7A does as well, but the viewing angles I think are really good on this. You don't get a lot of that off-color shifting that you used to get on the older Pixels. It's reasonably bright. The screen doesn't get as bright as the iPhones, but it's bright enough. It's a very good display. It does great. So yeah, overall, I'm super pleased with this phone. I'm really happy with the Pixel 7. It's my daily driver at work. I'm still hanging on to the iPhone teat. I'm so ensconced in the ecosystem, and my wife is, and she's not interested in exploring anything other than the iPhone. And so I really am just kind of stuck with the iPhone because of the ecosystem, and it allows me to communicate easily with my wife and with other friends and family members. So I'm probably not ever going to get rid of my iPhone. I may end up transitioning in the future, you know, when a newer version of the SE, one of the iPhone SEs comes out. If it's a decent, you know, mid-range phone, you know, I may, and it was cheap, you know how Apple is though, but, you know, if I can get one for a decent price, I may just downgrade, you know, to the SE so I can still stay in the ecosystem, and then just use the Pixel or maybe some other Android device as my my daily driver, and then I can relegate the iPhone to maybe my work phone. We'll see. Again, the ecosystem is really hard to get away from. But those are my thoughts on the long-term use of the Pixel 7. In conclusion, it's a great phone. It has only gotten better with time, and I think that really is a positive. It's a pro going in when thinking about longevity of the Pixel 7. So great phone, love it, use it all the time. All right, everyone, have a great day, and we'll see you in the next video. Thank you. Bye-bye.